Let me tell you something you already know. The world ain't all sunshine and rainbows. It's a very mean and nasty place, and I don't care how tough you are, it will beat you to your knees and keep you there permanently if you let it. You, me, or nobody is gonna hit as hard as life. But it ain't about how hard you hit. It's about how hard you can get hit and keep moving forward. How much you can take and keep moving forward. That's how winning is done.
And we are back, ladies and gentlemen. It is the Juice Worth the Squeeze, episode number 2. Week 1 in Leadville is in the books, and I'm here to give you a little report. And then I'm also going to get into a little bit of what tonight means to me and what has happened in the past on this run that I'm about to embark on. It's week 1. It's in the books. I had hoped to get right into things, arriving in Leadville on Monday, and that wasn't the case, but I was still able to get a good amount of training in this week, but definitely wasn't what I had hoped for. I'd kind of taken a little bit of a down week last week, knowing that, coming up here I was going to be frothing and ready to get into it pretty hard. And I've been messing around with gear, trying to figure out, as always, what's the best thing to carry for 100 miles. I often say to people when I talk to them about preparation for ultras and 100-mile races that it's the training aspect of it's pretty easy. That's the easy part. You get out, you get it done. The harder parts are finding the right gear, having your nutrition dialed in, because those are the things that can really cause you problems out there on the course. You either do the training or you don't. You're prepared or you're not, and going into it how it's going to go based on your preparation. It's things with gear, blisters, chafing, things like that. And then also with the nutrition, you can get some GI problems, you get some stomach issues, and that can put a damper on things pretty quickly. So I've been messing around with a couple different waist packs, and I got some reviews coming for you folks as well. It's just hard. It's difficult to find things that work well without, spending hundreds of dollars to do these things. So I've been playing around with a few different waist packs. One I really like, but when I cinch it to fit me properly, it's pretty difficult to get, the things in and out of it that I need to in terms of a water bottle and then also gels and whatnot. So I put it out to the powers of social media, asking for recommendations, and I got a couple people that recommended the Ultra Spire Nerve waist pack, and so I found one online pretty cheap. I guess it's an older model. Of course, the other thing that they're doing now is they're making things different. They're making bottles different. It's difficult to, use certain products. You can't, have a pack from one brand and then use bottles from another brand now. Everything's not as universal as it once was. Things are changing. They've changed all the shapes of the bottles nowadays, and anyway, so I got this Nerve pack from Ultra Spire, and it seemed like it fit pretty good, and it worked pretty well. It was pretty comfortable. Not a lot of bouncing, which I like. Had a hard bottle, which is another thing I like. I'm not really a fan of the soft body bottles or the bladder bottles or flasks, whatever you want to call them, whatever companies, they have different names for them. Not really a fan. They don't really work well for me. So I'm used the Ultra Spire pack for a couple days, and things seem to be working good. And then unfortunately I woke up on Sunday morning and I had a little bit of lower back pain, and it seemed like it was kind of localized to right where the bottle had been sitting on my hip, and then the issue that I've been dealing with all winter with a glute hamstring issue on the right side magically popped up on the left side. So sitting in the car for 10 hours or 11 hours. Just made things worse. So I spent most of the week getting in what I could. I got a couple uh, good vertical runs in. Got a good amount of vert in for the first week here. Would have liked to have gotten a little more, but when you're dealing with these things, it's better to go easy and proceed with caution as opposed to go full bore and then ending up having to take, you know, extensive time off. I'm not in a position right now where I can take time off, so I've got to do what I can do until things clear up, and then I can do what I want to do. Um, the only thing I can think of was that it is related to the pack that I wore a couple days last week. So that one's going over to the thrift store here in town, and that will be up for sale, along with a couple other packs that I don't foresee using ever again. Um, so that's that. Training's going well. Adjusting to the altitude pretty good. Not too many issues. Sleep the first night wasn't great, but it's getting better and better. And the this past weekend and into tonight is the Leadville Trail Run Camp. So I was able to help out with that again. Done that the last 3 years. So we're going out for our night run tonight. And if you know me, you know that this is the infamous night that 2 years ago I broke my foot, got my Jones fracture. And unfortunately, it was all my own doing. It wasn't an overuse thing. It was just more of me being a peacock and trying to assert my alphaness when I didn't need to. And we're going back out there tonight. This is the second time since I broke my foot that I've gone out on this trail. And actually, it's the third time I've been on this trail in the dark since I broke my foot, two at the camp, and then one last year pacing one of my athletes home to get in under the cutoff time and get his official finish and his under 30-hour belt buckle. But yeah, so in 2015, I was pretty primed and ready to take a real crack at getting on the podium. And unfortunately for me, I had been dealing with some issues and wasn't necessarily in a good headspace leading into the run camp. I had a pretty good marathon the week before, but I just was not in a good headspace. I was carrying around some aggression and some anger, and unfortunately that did me in. And you live and learn from these things, but it is what it is. You go after things to be a little too aggressive, not channeling that aggression and that anger properly. It can definitely bite you in the ass, and that's what it did to me. We were running as a group the first 2 days of camp, and for some reason there was a guy that who was planning on running the 100 that year, and he just went off the front, didn't even let the camp organizers or anything really give the lowdown as to the course or any sort of precautionary measures needed to take or any sort of final thoughts or just words of encouragement getting out there. He just took off and was gone. And it didn't really sit well with me. I couldn't understand why, if you're trying to run a 100-mile race, why you wouldn't want to run with the guy who finished second the year before and was coming back to run it again, Michael Aish. I was super stoked to pick his brain and run with him for 4 or 5 hours, whatever it was, and this guy just was gone off the front and did the same thing the next day when we did Hope Pass, and I had a feeling he was going to do it again for that night run, and I told myself all day long, don't get sucked into it, don't go off and run with this dude. It doesn't have any bearing on anything what happens here. You're just here to take in the camp and help people. It's not about you. And so I thought I was in a pretty good mindset, and we got off the bus, and people were standing around talking, doing their thing, kind of waiting for the final instructions from the race director and from the founder and the former race director, Ken Colber. and dude just takes off. I'm not even going to mention his name because I don't want to give it any sort of acknowledgement, but dude takes off, and for some reason, when I saw him take off, I was like, "Fuck this! I'm running with this dude, and we're gonna fucking see whose dick is bigger." So we took off, and I caught up to him, and we were running, and I was in no mood to try to be friendly with the dude. Had this total fuck you mentality, like you don't want to be a part of the group, you don't want to do any of this, then the gloves are off, and we're bare knuckle on this bitch. So probably after about a half mile or a mile of running in silence, and we had already gone from going out of the gate, and we were already down around, 6 minute pace, and dude decided he was going to break the silence and introduce himself, and I was still pretty short with him. I didn't have any interest in being friendly with him or chatting it up with him. I was going to run as hard as I could till one of us fell off, and that was how the night was going to go. So we dropped down onto the Colorado Trail, the steeper section, and he, let me go ahead of him. And unfortunately, one of the things I had planned for that season, was to get a better headlamp so that I could see the trail better, because I knew from the year before in 2014 that, I went from 5th to 7th over that last 13 miles or so because of my headlamp. I had gotten that far into the race and didn't want to jeopardize anything by pushing it a little bit, knowing that I couldn't really see that well with the gear that I was working with. So there was a lot of that last 13 miles that I hiked that I really could have ran, but I hiked because of the headlamp. So I knew that. I had it, budgeted for it, and was going to get it, in the weeks to come leading into, to the race. And unfortunately, I stepped on a rock and was half on the rock, half off the rock, and I was also in a pair of Hokas, and I think that definitely had something to do with it. I know people swear by them. I will never wear another Hoka ever again in my life, but if you choose to wear them and you don't have any issues with your feet or your ankles or anything, then by all means keep doing it. So stepped on a rock and was half on the rock, half off the rock, and rolled over the top of my foot, and instantly I knew that I had cracked the bone, if not broken it all the way, and there was a sharp, hot, burning pain, and I tried to run on it and was able to run on it because we dropped off of the trail onto the road into the parking lot, and there was maybe a quarter mile or half mile section of road running that I was able to run on. But once we got back onto the trail with the roots and rocks, there was just no way, with that pressure of the roots and rocks pushing up onto my foot, that I was able to run. And I knew without even having to go to the doctors that it was broken. And so my season was kind of finished at that point. And couple days later, was able to get to the doctor, and was able to see an orthopedic surgeon, and sure enough, I had a Jones fracture. And so my 2015 season was over, and it was my own fault. I did it to myself. I had no one to blame but myself. I could have easily ran with the guys that I had run with the previous 2 days and had a great time and chatted it up, and really enjoyed that night out on the trail. But for some reason, there was just something that just didn't sit well with me, and I just felt like, if this guy wants to peacock, well, then I'm going to fly. And fortunately, it didn't work out well for me. It is what it is. I'm back at it. It's 2017, taken me 2 years to get back up here full time and ready to rock and roll. But we're back and we're going for it, and we're heading out here in a little bit to go tackle that night run. And luckily for me, I am in a much better place mentally and physically. I have no intentions of running hard tonight or pushing the pace. I might push the pace a little bit once we get back out onto the road, onto the boulevard, heading up home, the final 5 miles or so. But other than that, when we're on the trails, I'm just going to really focus on being careful, being safe, and being smart, and most importantly, having fun. Because if you're not having fun, what is the point of doing it, So that's it. I don't have too much for you. I'm going to keep these fairly short. Eventually, they're going to get a little bit longer as I get some new people out on the trail.